Good afternoon. Welcome to the second episode of Business Pe Baatein. This is a series of seminars run under the Entrepreneurship Cell of ICER Kolkata to inculcate the entrepreneurial skills among the student body. For these webinars, eminent personalities from the corporate and business world are invited to speak on various themes related to entrepreneurship so as to introduce the audience to the fundamentals of various aspects of it. Before we begin, we would like to lay down some rules to ensure smooth proceedings with minimal disruptions during the talk. So participants will be granted entry till 3:10 p.m. So if you know any friends who want to join and still haven't, please tell them to do so as soon as possible. Please switch off your video and mute your microphone for the duration of the talk. And please refrain from entering any unnecessary or inappropriate messages in the chat box. Towards the culmination of the talk, we may open the floor to the audience to pose any questions that you may have, and our speaker can pick any randomly and answer them. On a lighter note, please do follow ESIL on social media to receive updates regarding further developments. All right, getting back to our webinar, the topic for today is ingredients of a successful startup, ideas to implementation. And we feel extremely honored to have our guest speaker, Dr. Shubhranshu Sanyal, CEO of IIM Calcutta Innovation Park, to impart his knowledge to us today. Dr. Shubhranshu Sanyal is a passionate startup evangelist, an experienced management professional, and currently the CEO of IIM Calcutta Innovation Park. He has been with IIM CIP since its inception and is working on creating a comprehensive ecosystem that would promote entrepreneurship and nurture innovation. As the CEO, he has been actively engaged with the key stakeholders in the various entrepreneurship domains, with special focus on developing a robust startup ecosystem in East and Northeast India. During his time at the Innovation Park, he has served as a mentor to many startups and has been actively responsible for incubation activities like sourcing, mentoring, capacity building, and funding of the startups. Shubhranshu sir pursued his degree in mechanical engineering from Jadavpur University, his MBA from IIM Calcutta, and PhD from National Law University, Jodhpur. He has rich experience in process and system consulting and executed several large strategic projects in the banking and financial services domain for global organizations. He also had stints with 2 startups as co-founder. Sir has a deep interest in the social entrepreneurship space and is involved in various social initiatives as an active Rotarian. Without further ado, I now hand over the floor to Dr. Shubhranshu Sanyal.
Thank you, Meghna. Thanks for the introduction. Good afternoon to all the participants, the students, the aspiring startups, the startups. I think it's a mixed bag here today. And I'm happy to see that, so many people have gathered today to discuss about startups, which is a very good sign considering our ecosystem. Let me share my screen. Yeah, is it visible now? I'll make it full screen. Is it visible now?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Visible? Okay. So, Meghna, I believe you are the host, right? You are in control of the entire show. So you need to help me. You and your colleagues need to help me because I will ask some questions in between, and I will request the participants to type it on the chat box. And Google doesn't allow me to, see the comments as well as the presentation together. So I need your help to read out some of the comments. Okay? Is it okay?
Yes, sir. We'll try to make it as interactive.
Yeah, otherwise it becomes too monotonous for me. I also need to have some takeaway from this session, right? Okay. Okay, friends. So today the topic that was, I plan to talk about is ideas to implementation. This is actually a very broad topic. Because ideas to implementation, this entire journey is too long to take. But I thought that let me talk about that. And what I did, I took help of the organizing committee to float a questionnaire within the network and understand that what are the key questions that you have in your mind. I didn't want to talk whatever I want to talk. Rather, I wanted to talk about areas which you would like to know. Okay, and if I have knowledge, I'll definitely share that with you. So, thanks to the organizing committee, I got responses, a pretty decent number of responses, and this is what I gathered as the common areas of concern. There are more details to it, but on a high level, I categorized it. There are three areas: ideation, various aspects, of ideation. Then building a startup. After ideation, how do I build a startup? And then the last one, where I had many responses. I think a majority wants to know about the funding for startups, funding for early stage startups. Okay, so I thought that I will cover these 3 points, and obviously I'll be happy to uh, hear your comments, your questions, and if I know, I'll definitely share with you. Now, some disclaimer. See, I am from a background which is not so good, in the sense I have failed 3 times to do a startup. Okay, so this is my background. So don't expect that I know answers to all the questions and I know the tricks and everything which you'll be readily be able to use, because if I knew all those, I would have succeeded, right? So that's a disclaimer. I am a failure in terms of doing a startup. But on the positive side, what I have, which actually I'll use for today's session, is that over the period of around last 6 years, I have been closely working with startups, and many of them have become sustainable businesses. So it's a big learning for me. Okay, uh, from my failure days, at least I learned what not to do. What to do, I don't know. As I told you, if I knew that, I would have done it and raised, let's say, $1 million of funding. I was not aware of that point in time. But while working with the startups, the entrepreneurs taught me big lessons. And today, what I'm going to share with you is a mix of what not to do and maybe some of the good things that I have observed that some startups have done. Okay. Before I get into ideation on all, I think you all should know that how a startup life cycle looks like. Okay, how a journey looks like. So the next slide shows the typical startup life cycle, or this is a standard life cycle which is known as product life cycle or product S curve. So if I consider your solution, whatever you are doing as a startup, as a product, okay, product slash service, doesn't matter, all your startups would go through this S curve. So it starts, and if you look at the graph, so the horizontal axis, the x-axis is time, and the y-axis is cash flow. So now if you follow the red curve, so it says that when you start with 0, right? And you decide to go for a startup. So you start with idea, and then you or a concept, and then you start developing the concept. Okay. So what are you doing? You are actually pumping in effort and money to develop that concept, and you keep on doing that till you reach a stage where your product is ready to hit the market. Okay, so that's the bottom of the trough, and then you are ready to launch it in the market and hopefully earn some money. So that is known as the introduction phase, where you introduce your product in the market and get some cash flow in. So that's the time, your negative cash flow keeps on reducing till you reach a point where it becomes zero. Okay, so that means it's like a break even that you have reached. And then the next phase is growth, where your product is accepted in the market, people like your product, so the demand is increasing and you are producing to keep up to the demand, and you see a sharp rise in your sales, in your cash flow. Okay, after a while, obviously this slope reduces, the rate of growth reduces, because you have become bigger, you have a bigger base. That's normal, and you still continue to have generate positive cash flow. But that is also not going to sustain forever, because there is a time when you will have competition, the need for the product will not be there anymore. So then the demand will fall, and naturally your sales, your cash flow will come down. So that is known as the decline phase. So this is a standard product S curve. So all startups is to understand that this is a standard S curve. Okay, but now when you are talking about the startups and the success of the startup, the challenges of the startups, the biggest challenge is to get out of this ditch, that initial trough you can see. Okay, or the ditch or the pothole, whatever you see. So every startup will get into this. Okay, and 90% of the startups will get stuck here. They will not be able to come out of this ditch or of this trough. Okay, so it's very important for all of you to know that a little bit zoom into this trough, that what is inside this, why startups get stuck here, why they can't come out of this. Most of the startups, the ones which come up, they grow and get into the further stages. So let me zoom into this V region. Okay, this V region is also known as valley of death. Okay, now you know why. So the same axis, everything is same. Now I am explaining it to you in further detail. So I'm zooming in for all of you to understand how things work. So you start with the idea, and the red curve you have seen, right? That is the ideal curve, that it should come down because you are burning money so you are first developing the prototype, you are doing testing, and if everything goes well, you come up with your product or solution which is acceptable. Then you have a business model around it, means you start selling and you keep on selling till you see that yes, the market is accepting more and more, and then the curve goes up, right? Now this is the ideal curve, but at each stage there are pitfalls, and if you look at the blue and green lines, those lines mark those pitfalls. At the first stage, when you are developing prototype, there is certain percentage of startup which will stop here, because whatever you wanted to develop, when you actually tested it in the market or in the real life scenario, things doesn't work. So many startups would stop here. So a certain percentage gets lost here, and that's a large percentage. Next one, the successful ones who pass to the testing and go for a product, they will get stuck here, because even if they launch the market, they didn't find many takers. Okay, so the product was okay in the lab, the product tested well, the product is ready for launch, you have launched it, but there are not many takers in the market. Okay, so then that means you are not satisfying the demand of the customer. So we call it lack of product market fit. And another percentage of additional percentage die at this stage. Then the next stage is that yes, customers are buying it in Kolkata, we have satisfied the needs of the customer, but now you cannot sell to the customers of Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, for whatever reasons, okay? So your growth is restricted. That means what? You will not get out of the negative cash flow. So you will somewhat get out, you will struggle forever, and then slowly you will give up because it is not scalable. Whatever you have developed failed to satisfy the needs of customer of a bigger geography. Okay, so your growth has been very limited. So these are some of the reasons why you don't fail to come out of the value of death. And my message to all the aspiring entrepreneurs here, that please remember this value of death. Okay, so it's like that game, where there are multiple challenges and obstacles, and you need to jump each level, right, and go to the next level. It's the value of death is also like that. Let me come to the next slide. Now, the three things I mentioned: ideation, launching your business, launching your startup, and funding, right? So the first part, ideation. What are the kind of questions that you had in your mind? From the survey, these are the questions that I just rephrased it. What is a good idea? How to validate that your idea is good, or how to validate your idea, right? What are the reasons for failure and how those may be avoided? And how students should approach starting up. These are some of the questions that came up. Okay. So let me try to provide a bigger picture around that, and I'll try to answer these questions through that. So there was a survey done, and these surveys are done frequently, that what are the top reasons why startups fail. Okay, many people think it's because of funding, the technology didn't work. Okay, the product was whatever technology reasons, money, but the key reason is, or the top reason in almost all the surveys are whatever is mentioned here. There is no market need, in the sense, I'll explain to you in a better terms, that you are developing a solution for which there is no problem, or you are trying to satisfy a need which does not exist. Okay, so there is a big mismatch between the solution and the problem. Okay, so if this is the top reason why startups fail, how do we take care of this part? How do we make sure that our products or the solutions that we are developing is aligned to the needs of the customer? First of all, why it happens, how it happens. Let us understand that. So next slide, I will talk about how it happens. Okay, typically how it happens, if you follow the arrow diagram, the first one, see, typically I'll give one example. So one young chap met me, that said, I'm developing this solution, okay, which is using blockchain and analytics to in the education space to do this and that. So I asked him that, why are you doing it? What made you choose this solution? Okay, so he said that, look sir, I studied this during my engineering and whatever studies he has done, so I know this area very well. So that's the reason I thought that let me try to do something, apply these techniques on some domain. So I chose education because this is a very common sense stuff. So this is how we start. You start with your core competency, what I can do. Okay, then you start developing your offering. Okay, that what all I can develop using my knowledge. Once you develop your offering or your solution, then you try to figure out that who would need my solution or who would buy my solution. Then you try to find a customer for your solution, right? And it might happen that you will not find any customer because whatever you have developed as a solution, the problem does not exist. You want to use blockchain and analytics for, let's say teaching kindergarten students. Maybe, the kindergarten students or the teachers don't feel that there is a need for that. Okay. So this is called inside out approach. Means I develop something first and then I try to figure out that who will buy this solution. And that is the biggest reason for this product and market mismatch. Now, you should remember this thing, that customer is always at the center. Whether you are, and the customer, and you will make profit when your product and service provides a benefit or value to the customer. Okay, then only you will make profit. Then only customer will pay you. Okay, so whenever you are designing the product or after designing or selling the product, customer has to be the center of everything. Now, with this concept, I move to the how you should approach this, or the outside in approach. Inside out approach is I start from myself, what I can do, and I develop that and then try to find a customer. The outside in approach starts from the reverse direction. It says what customers want. Let me first figure out that what customers want, okay? And then after understanding that, I'll find out that where are the gaps. Okay, how and what can we offer to address those gaps or to address those needs? How we create value for the customer so that the needs are satisfied. And then you figure out that what kinds of skill set, business model, technology I bring in to solve the problem. So we are starting here from the customer, that who are these people, what problems they have, what needs they have, which is not yet addressed. So what can I do for them? What can I offer them? Okay. And to offer that solution, what kind of technology, business model, service that I need to bring in. So what it ensures is that it has this customer first or market driven approach. Means you are starting with the customer demand or customer need. So there is no way that your product will not, like if you successfully develop the product, it will ensure that it will always meet the needs of the customer, because you started with the customer need or the customer and then you develop the solution. It's the other way around. So this is called outside in approach. So first recommendation is that, so all those questions you have, where should I start? How should I, develop my idea? What is a good idea? The first recommendation is start from the customer. Okay. You select that which area you want to operate. Okay. And it can even start from a passion that you have. Okay. For example, again, another question that I, got is that, is it necessary that whatever business I want to do, whatever startup I want to do, has to be necessarily based on the technology that I learned or based on the area that I have studied? Is it necessary? It is not necessary. Okay. For example, you are studying, let's say, engineering, okay, and you are studying, let's say, civil engineering, mechanical engineering, okay, or computer science, okay. Doesn't mean that if you're thinking about a startup, it has to be, something related to, where you study. It might be a very different area. End of the day, you need to identify a big need for that you are satisfying a big need. Need not be necessarily, sorry, something which you have studied. So you maybe some of you are interested in photography, right? You are very passionate about photography, and while you are doing photography, you are observing some big challenges faced by photographers or the community. If you come up with and if it's a real need, and if you come up with a solution for this photographers or photography community, and you want to do it because you have a passion, okay, that itself would be a very good starting point for a business. or as a startup where you bring in some technology innovation to solve that problem. Okay. So we have several examples of one interesting example. We have one startup uh, which is working with snakes, but this person has never studied. Who will study snakes normally? So this entrepreneur is like he did his MBA and all, but he liked snakes right from his childhood, and later on he realized that snakes are not as harmful as we think, and we need human beings also need support of snakes, because only snake venom can is a source of anti venom which cures people who are suffering from snake bites, right? So there is a benefit. So he's currently trying to develop a business model around it to create a snake farm, extract venom from the snakes, and supply it to the anti-venom manufacturers. So it can be any area where you are passionate about. Okay. And remember this is a very famous quote, that people don't want a quarter-inch drill, people want a quarter-inch hole. Okay. So how it's related, if you are following, just a second, just give me 1 second here. Sorry, is my screen visible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry, I was having some trouble with the net. Yeah. So I'll relate this quote to whatever we have said. If you say that I am the best drill manufacturer in the world, okay, that is an inside-out approach. I am manufacturing drills, and whoever has, and then I find out customer who would need drills. But on the other hand, if I identify that the people are looking for easy solution to make a hole, and I manufacture drill to help that, then that's a outside-in approach. Okay. Another one good example, you all have heard about Kodak, right? Now Kodak believe that they are the best in. So they said that we manufacture the best quality films in the world. Okay. The films are used for photography, for X-rays, scans, many things. Okay, that's what they believe, that we manufacture films. But then what happened to Kodak? After the digital era came, this physical films and all just got scrapped. So they lost the entire business because they failed to realize that they are not in the business of making films. They are in the business of capturing memories. That is the need of the customer. Need of the customer is not that I want film. I want to capture memory. If you have a better way of solving that, that's it. So whenever you think about an idea, don't start from the solution. Start from what the customer needs and how I can solve the need of the customer. Okay. And this is the way typically, there's a standard methodology called design thinking, where the first two phases, empathize and define. Empathize means step into the shoes of the customer, understand what the customer's pain points are, customer's needs are, define those needs, and identify the ones you want to solve. Okay, the first two phases are like 50% of the entire process. After you identify the need, then you do ideation, that what would be the solution, develop prototype and test it. And that goes as a iterative method, okay, ideation to testing. But the first two phases, empathize and define, are very, very important, or rather most important, because these two phases align your solution to the need of the customer. And that's what I have discussed till now. I'll give you a 3 simple checkbox as a litmus test whether your idea is a good idea or not. After so much discussion, I'll give you a summary of what I mentioned just now. So people who are in doubt whether my idea is a good idea or not, whether I can make profit, if I do a startup, or even if you have started, it's always good to do this litmus test. 3 conditions. First one is it a real need? Okay. Whatever you are addressing, is it a real need? And how do you verify that? You talk to potential customers and confirm that it's a real need. Yes, we need it. And don't only talk to your family and friends. Talk to people whom you don't know. Your family and friends will always support you. They will not try to dishearten you. They will say, yeah, it's a good solution. Don't make that mistake. Talk to as many people as you want. Confirm that it's a real need. That's the first checkbox. Second thing, is it a big need? Big need means, is it a solution which only students in your campus would use? Or is it a solution which any student from any campus would use? So that means, is it a local need or a big need? Or it's spread across the geography? So is it a big need? That's the next question. Third one is, are people willing to pay if you provide a solution? So it's a need, it's a big need. People willing to pay if you provide the solution. The third one also, you need to check, do a survey and figure out whether people are willing to pay for the solution. Because friends, there are many solutions which we are using free, okay? But it's a real need and big need. What about, let's say, WhatsApp? It's a real need now for you. It's a big need, right? But are you willing to pay for it? At least the normal users are not. Okay? So it's not necessary that all 3 will be ticked. So that's the reason WhatsApp had to devise an alternative model to earn money, not through the users directly. Okay? So these are AND conditions. And if all 3 boxes are ticked, then only you know you have a good idea. You have an idea which you can pursue. Okay? So it's a simple litmus test for you. So that's all about ideation. I can take questions, or maybe I'll take questions all at the end. So you keep on noting down your questions. Let me finish it first. Second part, the questions that I received. The second category is building a startup. Okay, so there were questions from participants like, how to monetize my research work or my project, how to take my idea forward. Okay, then building a team. Does experience matters? Does technical knowledge matters? So these are some of the questions that came up, that how do I take my idea forward? Okay. So till now we have figured out that what is a good idea, what are the initial steps to validate your idea, right? So once all those are done, then you come here. Let me share with you a few tips how to take it forward. So I spoke about the design thinking, right? That empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Okay. So there are 2 approaches. One approach is that you try to gather all the needs of the customer, okay, and then design your solution and bring it to the market. Okay. But the challenge is very difficult to gather all the needs of the customer in one go. Okay. If I ask you that you are developing a website, okay, I have a need to develop website. Okay, you come and ask me, sir, what kind of website you need? I said, something which will be contemporary, something which will have a bright color, okay, very easy to navigate, user friendly. So I tell you for 5 minutes all this, all my needs, right? Do you think that you will be able to gather all the requirement in one go? Not possible, because I said I need bright colors. Okay, So you may ask that bright color means in what shade? Red, yellow, green, blue. So I can say, okay, something in blue. But that is also not enough, right? I said, I need something user friendly. But what is user friendly? So what you need to do, you need to develop something as a first cut, then come back again and show, demonstrate to me that this is my first cut understanding. Now you tell me what you need. Then I said, okay, no, see, this blue is not the blue I look for. I'm looking for. It will be more like indigo blue, this shade, that shade. Then user friendly, then you will say, you know what, I don't want, these buttons and all, I just want only touch or whatever it is. So that means whenever you are, and now imagine if you have developed the entire website just with the first cut understanding and delivered to me, I would have rejected everything or most of the features. I said I didn't want it. I wanted something different, right? And this is where most of the startups get hit, because they don't understand the full need of the customer. And it is not possible also. Don't even attempt to understand the need of the customer in one go. So you need to change your product development strategy. Okay. So how do you develop your product? You gather the first piece of need, understanding of the need. Develop the prototype. Go back to the customer. Check, test, get a feedback. Gather more, and the customer will be able to think better. The customer will be able to specify the need better. Okay. Come back. Again, add on, implement. Go back. Validate, come back. So after 2-3 such iterations, you will be able to develop something very close to what the customers would require. Okay. So that's the reason this methodology called lean methodology is getting popular. And the motto is that fail early, fail cheap. Okay. So what it means, if your product is not meeting the need of the customer, you should know it early so that you don't invest a lot of effort and money. If you fail early, fail cheap, so the damage is less. So that's the reason the lean methodology advises that follow this design thinking cycles in iterations. These small cycles should be followed, and you iterate till you reach the final shape or final form which the customer would like, or which addresses the need of the customer. Because the philosophy is that you will never be able to get all the needs in one go. Don't even attempt that. Try to gather enough, develop something, go back, test, gain more knowledge, gain more understanding, more experience, add on or refine or modify, again go back. Like this, after a few iterations, you will be there. Okay. And it might happen that after a couple of iterations, you figure out that it's not possible for me to build this solution with the current cost and the current technology know-how we have. So then that means you scrap it. But that is still a success for you because you have learned your lessons, number one. Number two is that you have scrapped it before putting your full effort and energy behind it and money behind it. You learned early that this is not going to work. That is also a good outcome of your startup experience, that if you fail early, fail cheap. Okay. So this is the first step, how you should take your or a strategy how you should take your idea forward instead of doing everything and going to the market. Now the next question is, when you are building your startup, what is important? Idea, business model, innovation, financials, or the team? The idea is important, most important, or business model is most important. Innovation in your solution is most important. Financials is most important, or team is most important. Okay. So I have checked with various investors and mentors and experts that what is important, right? Everything seems to be important. And I figured out that a majority of these experts and investors, they feel that the team has a higher weightage as compared to the others. because they believe that ideas will be modified, ideas will change, business model will change. These are all changeable, and that these are influenced by the environment, by the factors. Okay, the political, economic, regulatory, or various factors are there which influences this. But what remains constant is the founding team. And the strength of the team actually drives this entire business. The team adapts to the changing environment, and their capability to execute is what makes the difference. So this is the thought, or this is the thought which has been shared by many experts. So let's talk about the team. This is very important. When I talk about the team, the first question that people ask is that promoter. So one person is good enough, or you need multiple promoters? Is it essential to have multiple promoters? Okay. So earlier people really didn't used to bother about it, even if it's a one person led company. But now the recent thoughts are, when investors invest in a company, they tell us that, look, nowadays doing business is becoming more and more complex. Okay, each aspects of the business is getting complicated. So for one person to manage all aspects of the business well is virtually impossible, or very, very difficult. And again, from a business perspective, relying only on one person to lead the business is also risky, even for the investors. So for these reasons, they prefer multiple people in the founding team or in the key team. Okay. Now, when you talk about multiple people now, these are the typical things that gets asked, that do you need experienced people as founders? What kind of skill set you need? Okay, so these are the questions that comes. Okay. Now, experience means somebody with work experience and all. My personal thought for this is that, yes, it's good to have one person with a practical, real life, hands-on work experience, who knows the pain of at least doing things already. Not mandatory. We have seen successful startups where all the co-founders were freshers out of college. So it's not that it's mandatory that you need to have somebody who has some work ex to be part of your team. You can always start with a full fresher team, but maybe as and when you progress and as and when things becomes more complex, you may think about including somebody with experience in your team. For example, when you start the business or start your activities, that technology development and all takes priority, right? So all those, even if you are freshers, but they are technically very competent, is good enough, right? But when you launch, okay, and when you start scaling up, then understanding of the market, understanding of new geography, scaling up, that becomes more and more important. And within the team, you may not have that expertise. Then you may think about getting somebody who has experience in this as part of the core team, who can drive that part of the business. Okay. So this is again dependent on skill set, and it's always advisable that the people who are coming together to form this business, to run this business, have some kind of complementary skill set. That one person not good in finance, so that gap is made up by the other co-founder who has a good understanding of finance or marketing, something like that. Okay. And it's always better to have a founders agreement when you start the company, where your roles are defined, your rewards are defined, so that there is no trouble later on. Because we have seen many startups, when they didn't have money, they were all fine. But as soon as they raised money, then they started fighting. Okay, that whose share is how much, who is supposed to get what. So all these things are not so pleasant, it's better to have a agreement and understanding right up front, and preferably in writing. The decision making structure, who decides, who is responsible for what, all those things needs to be, you need to identify and put it in place. And it's very important to have an advisory board, because you, again, to open doors, for your strategic directions, it's good to have some seasoned people as your advisors, would be able to, would work, act as a sounding board for you, for your ideas, your thoughts, and also would be able to connect you, help you access, various networks and customers and all. Okay. So that's about the team. So this is more or less, see, this entire life cycle is huge, and this 1 hour is not enough. So I thought I'll just touch upon the important aspects of taking, how to take your business forward, and team is the most important aspect of that, because execution matters. The idea that you have, there will be many people having similar ideas, but the person who would be able to execute it fast and better would be taking the market. Okay. For example, if you look at Flipkart is not the first, definitely not the first e-commerce player in India, right? Even 10 years before Flipkart was born, there were e-commerce players. But why Flipkart could make it big, right? Because they had a team which is capable, they identify the gaps in this entire e-commerce space well, and they have executed it well. Okay. The logistics, behind the portal that you see, that is just the tip of the iceberg. Whatever happens behind the scene is the actual work, right? So they have designed it very well. They have executed it with great efficiency, and that's why we have Flipkart, which is the winner. With the competitors who are there, they could progress much faster than the competitors. The third one, where I had many questions, is funding. The questions are that who will fund my startup? I have some idea who will fund my startup. What are the sources of funding for early stage startups? Okay. What investors look for? And what are the key elements of pitch? In a pitch, like a business plan pitch. So what should I talk? Okay. What the investors would like to hear. So these are the things I would like to address now. The third category, funding. Okay. How I will raise funding for my startups. Now, related to funding, these are the common things that I hear from startups. Now, people say, I pitched to so many investors, but no success. If I go to any event and there's a panel discussion with investors and all, like after the discussions and all, people will all chase the investors as if they are having checks and they are going to write checks, right? And I find that the same startup in every event. So they are just chasing investors wherever they get it. And finally they come and say that, I pitched to so many investors, but no success. But the question that they don't ask is that, are you fundable? Are you fundable in eyes of the investor? And the second thing is, are you talking to the right people? Okay. So for example, you have developed a prototype, okay, of some, let's say a EdTech product, okay, or a health care device, okay. You have developed a lab prototype which works well. Now you are approaching Sequoia Capital, okay, for funding. Do you think that you will ever get a response? Just because Sequoia Capital will never invest in a startup of that stage. They start at a very different level, and you are pitching for, let's say, 25 lakhs funding. Their minimum ticket size probably would be 10 crores. So it is not a match. That means you are not talking to the right people. How will you get success? It is very important to know, number one, are you fundable? And the second thing is that, are you talking to the right people? And I personally feel that the time the startups waste in chasing investors, if you chase customers, I think you will get much better success, because at least your business will grow. So my personal advice would be that don't think about investors right from day one. Think about customers from day one. And if you have a good business model, scalable business models, investors will be attracted anyways. Okay. Now, what investors want to know? Let me talk about that. Means when you are pitching, what are the things that the investors look for? And you need to prove that yes, you have that. Okay. So what the investors would like to know from you, and you need to demonstrate that. First thing is that, is your idea unique? What are the differentiators? How you are different from others? Then what we have discussed some time back, that are you solving a real problem that affects a lot of people? Means it's a real problem and a big problem. Okay, you need to establish that with proofs, with facts and figures. It's not that what I felt, or what I have experienced, or my family and friends have experienced. No, with real data and justification to show that yes, it's a real problem. Do you have a compelling value proposition? Means why should a customer buy from you? What compelling value proposition you have, that you need to establish. Okay. If you talk about, almost every month I come across a startup which is into food delivery services, like an app for food delivery. Fine, obviously food delivery is a need like that, right? But do you have a unique value proposition? Why should somebody not use Swiggy and Zomato and use your services? What is unique? What is the compelling value proposition that you have? Unless you establish that, then just by saying that food tech market is big, so that's the reason I have a good potential, doesn't hold good. Next one is that, can you show traction in the market? Means whatever you are saying, is it all like idea, all on the PPT, or you have done something on ground? Do you have any data from the market to show that yes, you have achieved something? Can you make it profitable? Is there any data to show that yes, I have sold 10 pieces, or I have sold 100 pieces? That is a proof that your product is selling. Customers want that product. And finally, do you have the perfect team to execute it, which is very important. For institutional investors, the team is very, very important. The capability of the team, the skill set that people bring in. Okay, we have a balanced team, very, very important. So these are the few things which is mandatory. You must prove that yes, you have it. Otherwise, your probability of getting a positive response from investors would be very low. Now, the next one is that, how will you get money? Who can give you the money, right? What kind of investors? And remember that not all investors are interested in all kinds of startups, okay? So they choose the kind of startup they want to invest. So here, these are the various phases of a startup. Initial phase means when you are developing the prototype, is the lab stage. Then pilot phase means where the product that you have developed goes for market validation, okay, like the pilot launch. Then if the pilot launch is successful, you have early revenue, then growth and scale up, right? So these are the various stages. So for each stage like this, you have a different sets of players, okay, right from the initial stage till IPO. And if you look at the IPO stage, is the private equity and investment banks. So those players will never come into the initial stages. They will only come at a super scale up phase, or close to IPO phase. So if you pitch to private equity or investment bankers, definitely will not get any results, right? Or advanced stage VCs who invest in Series A, B, C. So let me do a zoom in to this first three phases, initial, pilot, and early revenue, where most of you guys are, and talk in detail about the kind of investors that you have. So in the initial stages and the pilot stages, either it's a bootstrap, means your own money, your own savings, or triple F, family, friends, and fools, like people who would be, whom you can convince to put in some money for your business. Somebody has added another F nowadays. They say there are 4 Fs: family, friends, fools, and father-in-law. Okay, so I don't know how true is that, but that means those are people from your family network. Then in the initial stage, the biggest support comes from prototype grant by the government. Okay, if you have the look at the initial stage, lot of prototype grants where there is no demand, much demand, but you need to prove that you have a innovative idea. At the later stage of the, if you look at the last bracket, which is pre-seed or seed angels, so these angel investors are typically high net worth individuals who wants to invest in startups they like. So these are individuals. So their interest typically would be from the, like a not full initial stage, but at least the prototype stage till early revenue stage. Okay, so they will not come at the idea stage generally. They will typically come when a validated POC or prototype is there. From that stage till early revenue stage. And pre-seed money, which is typically offered by the incubators, these are basically government funds offered to the incubators. These are actually easy to get if you know who has that money and who has this kind of programs, which incubator. So from pilot till early revenue stage, this kind of funding are available. Okay. At the early revenue stage, you have pre-seed or seed stage early VCs. So these are the early stage VCs who operate at a pre-seed or seed stage. So these are typically anywhere between 25 lakhs to 1 crore or 50 lakhs to 1 crore kind of investment which they do. In the initial stage, the funding that happens would be anywhere up to 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs. Okay. Pilot stage and above, it starts from 25 lakhs and go all the way till 1 crore. Okay. And early revenue, it can go even up to 2 crores, starting from 50 lakhs sort of. There is another option of going to the banks for early stage startups for loans or debts. Then there is for pilot and early stage, there are various government grants or seed grants which are floated by government from time to time, primarily distributed to the incubators. For example, for biotechnology related grants, the government department is known as BIRAC, BIRAC. Currently, they are running a few grant programs. Please go through their website, get those that information and apply if you are eligible. So similarly, we have Department of Science and Technology, DST, then Ministry of Electronics and IT. All of them have similar programs to support early stage startups. There are a lot of support for early stage startups now. Unfortunately, when we run these programs, we float this call for applications. We don't get enough applications, and I'm surprised that wherever I go, people say, "Sir, I'm looking for funds," but whenever we float for applications, we don't get applications. I don't know where is the gap. So I have just summarized all this in this slide, that where you can get at what stage. In the prototype stage, as I said, there are fellowships by DST, BIRAC, and Ministry of IT. Prototype grants, again by the same organized government, or these are all government. Okay, the concept, research, and prototype stage, primarily the government programs and funds are there. Okay. Pilot stage, again government seed funds, state government or central government, DST, BIRAC, and MIT. And you have the angel network, which are the high net worth individuals. Now, once you reach the early revenue stage where you have some traction, you have some customers and all, then you have early stage impact investors or early stage investors. Okay, like Willgrow, Ankur, Rupaya, Social Alpha, Sangam. There are many such smaller investors. We have corporate CSR funds. Then we have the corporate startup funds and sector focused acceleration programs. So corporates also fund CSR, but mostly happen to incubators. So if you are early stage, at the pilot stage and all, concept, prototype plus stage, you must look at incubators who are disbursing this kind of funds. Okay. So I think that's all I had to to share with you, starting from idea, that what is a good idea, how to take your idea forward, then related to team, which is a very important part of building a startup, and funding. So what kind of funding are available for you? So many avenues of funding are available for you. Okay. Then what kind of investors you should look for at what stage. So I think, in a nutshell, I shared with you all you needed to know to develop your idea and take your idea to implementation stage. Now, if you have a few questions, I'll be very happy to answer that. And this is what I believe, that the main thing that is important is your will, your passion to do things. And if you don't have the necessary resources right now, don't worry. If you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. Okay. And I firmly believe in this because I've seen this happening. You need to have that passion to do things, have that will to make it happen. And then you see from somewhere things are falling in place. Okay. So that's all from my side. Thank you. And any question, I'll now request the moderator to coordinate that. Over to you.
Yes, sir. There are multiple questions in the chat box. Would you like to choose anyone at random?
Okay, so let me go through this. First one is, what are the important points angel investors look for? So I have already mentioned that, right? What are the key things that should be in your pitching, what they look for? I have a great idea that has no competition. How can I protect it so that others don't steal my idea? First of all, the concept that I have an idea and there is no competition, I don't believe in that. Okay. I don't think there is any idea that exists which doesn't have any competition. It may have substitutes. Okay. So if you say I have an idea where there is no competition, means people are surviving, people are living without your solution. So don't look at it like that. Okay. Yes, you might have some uniqueness, and the simple way to protect is that if it's patentable, then patent it. If you don't have any competition, if there is no other similar solution that exists, then it should be patentable, right? So I think to protect your idea is patenting. But be very careful when you pitch to the investors and say, I have no competition, I am the only one in the world. Either you have not done your research well, or you have not looked at your substitutes. What are the rights I have over an idea as my intellectual property? Again, the same thing, that if you have patents, then yes. And trust me, even if you have patents, that doesn't guarantee success of your startup, because somebody might solve the same problem by doing in a different way. Okay, they have a different way or a better way of solving the problem. So yes, patenting is one way to protect your intellectual property, but that doesn't ensure success of your startup. Okay. Next one is, if we have time towards the end, could you touch upon social startups and tell us about social entrepreneurship drive? Okay, yes, sure. So social startups is a very specific category of startups, which is a blend of business knowledge as well as societal benefit. Okay, so social entrepreneurs start their concept is to solve a big problem faced by people. Okay, faced by the society. So that's where they start, and then they figure out a way how to do the good work in a sustainable manner. Means how to create a business model around it and generate surplus so that you can make profits as well as do good work. So for example, we have one startup by the name Dehat. You can Google it. So they are solving the problems of the farmers who were suffering from both ends, both the input side as well as the demand side. Input side, again, middlemen, they were not getting the right kind of advisory and input like fertilizer, seeds and all. That's the reason their productivity was low. On the other side, demand, once they are produced, they are not getting the price. So this startup thought of using technology to bridge the gap on both sides. And they have, they are like more than 100 crores now, even have raised funding worth of 100 crores, works with, I think, around 1 million farmers now by this time. So it is possible to focus on a solution which impacts lives of people, but as well as run a successful business. Okay. And as IIM Calcutta Innovation Park, we are this is a very strong focus area for us, because we believe that startups can make a big difference in our society by solving big challenges of common people like healthcare, education, food and agriculture. So we prefer those kind of startups. It's not that we don't want any other kind of startup, but we have a preference for those kind of startups. How to look for positive signs when graph is really going down, so that one can keep himself motivated. Okay. Now, when graph is really going down means I'm assuming is the cash flow graph or the profitability graph. It's important to understand that why it is going down, and the best way to do it is that go back to the customer. The customer can tell you why your graph is going down. You can get insights from them. So I mean repeating it multiple times. When you are starting your ideation or running your business, doesn't matter. You should always stay close to the customer, and customer can give you valuable insights on any aspect of your business. How and where to outsource a good team if it case doesn't work? Hire people with basic expertise. Yes, outsourcing is sometimes a good option, but you outsource activities which are non-core to you. Okay, the activities which are core or proprietary to you, never outsource that. That is a basic principle. Tips on connecting with high profile people that can help your startup. Again, it's networking. I think you should attend various networking events that happens. Either it happens to the incubators or to the chambers. Many startup events are happening. You should attend that, and then you figure out that who all are the good people in the ecosystem, who you think would be beneficial as an advisor to your business, and then you approach them. I think that's the only way. Not the only way. That's one of the ways to get in touch with good people. How do you advertise your business? That's a very open-ended question. For startups, obviously, print, TV, and all are not a feasible option because of the cost. So, digitally reaching people digitally is the better option because you don't have much money. But now there are various techniques, there are various strategies around it, which will take some time to discuss. Okay, but I would say digital. Leveraging the digital platforms would be the better options for startups. What are the best online resources? Again, it's a very generic question. I'll skip this because See, for India, if you want to hear, read stories of startups, Your Story, INC 42, these are good um resources. Okay, Your Story, INC 42, they track the investment scenario also. So maybe that can be a starter for you. But otherwise, whatever comes on normal public media, definitely you can get a lot of insights from them. How luck is luck a big factor in success? I really don't know how to answer this. Uh, yes, I'll look at it from different angle. When we say luck, I would say the right timing. Okay, look at COVID. There are some startups which just launched before COVID, and immediately after launch, because of the restrictions, they are like almost on the verge of shutting down. So you call it luck or bad timing, we don't know. Okay, so when you are launching your startup, there are multiple uncertainties you need to go through. Okay, so you may not have alternatives or fallback options for all the risks that you. So I guess you need to accept some risk, wait for the right time, and again, be more prepared to do it right the next time. If you call it luck, yes, that's luck. I think timing. Ideal approach to figure out the best GTM strategy for a business, best go-to-market strategy for a business. Again, go-to-market is a different topic, but one thing I can tell you after interacting with so many startups and incubating so many startups, that the first piece of go-to-market strategy is to know your customer, identify the customer segment. Okay, most of the startups don't have clarity on who is my customer, and there's a difference between customer and user. So most of them or many of them don't understand that what is the difference between a customer and user. So they chase the wrong guy. Okay, so I'll not talk about go-to-market strategy, but the first point where you can start is have a clarity on your customers. You should close your eyes, able to visualize the customer. If you can do that, then your go-to-market strategy will automatically follow. Identify the customer and the value that you're offering to the customer. They are the two things that you need to figure out first before your GTM strategy. Okay, I think last two questions. As you deliberately think about the needs of the customer and their needs, doesn't the originality and authenticity of the initiator get lost in the process? Let me read it. I didn't understand. As you deliberately think about the needs of the customers and their needs, which is a necessity, doesn't the originality and authenticity of the initiator get lost in the process? I really didn't understand this question, but still let me attempt that. When I say understanding the need of a customer, I'm coming from that angle that if there is no need, there is no demand for your product or solution that you are doing. Okay, so it's better to understand whether the need exists or not before you come and develop the product in full, the full product. So that will be my answer. I don't know about the originality. I didn't understand that. As college students, should we be looking towards internship at innovation that I feel? Yes, absolutely. See, entrepreneurship is a very difficult journey. It's not everybody's cup of tea. Okay, please, don't get into that glamour part of it. It is extremely difficult, but I would still suggest that you should give it a go, at least for some time, to experience it. Now sometimes it might be difficult for people to experience a startup life because of your current situation. Then I would recommend the next best option is to do internship in a startup, or maybe spend some time with the incubator where you have a virtual feel of the startup life, and then you can take a better decision whether that's your cup of tea or not. It's a good idea, yes, that for a college student you engage with startups, experience real life challenges, try to solve real life problems for startups. That will give you a good idea whether you would like to go for a startup or not. How can I contact mentors who can help me? Again, the same question I think I answered previously, that it has to be, you need to use your network well, attend various these webinars or events or whatever is happening on startups. You automatically you get in touch with few good people, and then you figure out that who can be the right mentor for you. The other option is that get in touch with incubators, and if you get incubated, automatically you get mentorship from the incubators, because incubators have a pool of mentors. Okay, that's it. I think all the questions are I have answered, I believe. So over to you, the organizers.
Yes, sir. Am I audible? Yeah. Thank you so much for taking out time from your schedule, and in this unprecedented situation, we know it's difficult to have offline seminars, and hence we had to go for an online one. And the knowledge that we're getting from these webinars are just immense. So thank you so much for being part of it, sir. The entire team thanks you for being part of it.